Okay, welcome back everyone to Treant Monk's Temple. We're talking about Unearthed Arcana class variants, and I am joined by my special guest, who is Stefan, also known as Moonsilver. You can see him on Twitter, or you can join my Discord, talk to him. But we're going to be talking about the Ranger now, and this is the one that got the most dramatic changes. I think we would agree on that. So let's just hit them one at a time here. So the first one was Deft Explorer. This would replace your Natural Explorer feature, and you can choose one of these abilities at level 1, one at level 6, one at level 10. It was Canny, that gave you some expertise in a skill. Then there was Roving, that gave you movement increase and some different movement abilities like swimming and climbing equal to your walking speed, and Tireless, an ability based on your wisdom that would provide temporary hit points. And just my opinion on these abilities was I didn't like the fact that you could just pick them at any level because I thought they didn't make sense that way. Canny to me was an ability that screamed level 1 ability, get expertise on a skill that is appropriate for rangers. I just thought that screams level 1. Roving was an ability for me that screamed level 6. And Tireless was an ability that screamed level 10. And I saw issues with allowing Tireless at level 1 because I thought that's a lot of temporary hit points. I gave some examples in the video, but basically, if you have a 16 Wisdom, we're adding a lot of durability to the Ranger at level 1. And not necessarily an issue at level 10. But I do think at level 1 that's a problem. What was your opinion on Deft Explorer?
Okay, so I think one very important context here is that these rules are not designed with multi-classing in mind yet for the playtest.
Yeah, and I will mention that I watched Jeremy Crawford actually in a video just today, just before we started talking, where he says, I understand the problem with giving Tireless at level 1, where you can get your exhaustion back on a short rest, because obviously Berserker Barbarians are going to want that, but we didn't put this in with multi-classing in mind. So let's not be concerned about that. Though I do think if you are going to use these, be aware that a Berserker Barbarian basically almost has to take this at level 1, or as a dip, I should say, to get that. The designers knew going in that issue.
I'm actually not sure if that is the case, because Polar Master exists.
Okay, give me more context here.
Okay, so Polar Master allows me, it's just a D4, but also it allows me to attack as a bonus action, which means that the benefit you're getting as a Berserker Barbarian is heavily, heavily reduced in a game where you can take the Polar Master feat.
Yes.
So I'm not even sure if taking one level of Ranger at level 6, because you don't want to multi-class before level 6 as a Barbarian, because then you're not getting extra attack at level 5. That's
I would say that you could potentially do a 1 level dip.
Level 4 maybe.
We're talking about lower. I mean, we talk about this in builds all the time about multi-classing and the costs and the benefits. And a 1 level dip hurts, but it's not the end of the world.
I feel like for extra attack, it's tough. But yeah, I mean, you can definitely do the 1 level dip. I'm not sure if you want to do it before level 6.
Okay.
But regardless of that, if you then compare the Berserker that can bonus action attack every other combat, right? Like they have 2 fights, one of them they Frenzy Rage, then they Short Rest, remove the exhaustion. If you compare that to just a Zealot Barbarian who's elected to take the Polar Master feat, who gets a d6 plus half their Barbarian level as bonus damage every turn, I don't think that the Berserker Barbarian actually comes out on top damage-wise, and that is like all they do. Right?
I think you're going to be preaching to the choir here. I'm certainly not going to defend the Berserker Barbarian, and I bet you a lot of my audience wouldn't bother defending the Berserker Barbarian either. I just noted that there was opportunity there. That wasn't my issue with Tireless. My issue with Tireless was the number of temporary hit points it could provide you at, and not even the amount it can provide you, but the amount it could provide you at level 1 is my issue. Because as a ratio, this is so. If you add Tireless at level 10, 1d10 plus your Wisdom modifier a few times is significant, but it's not. It's compared to the amount of hit points you have, it's not a huge boost. And there's other ways to get temporary hit points at that point. But first level temporary hit points are fairly rare, and if you could do that, say 3 times, and then you're adding, if we add a 16 Wisdom, about 35 hit points to your character in an adventuring day, that's a big boost at level 1. Like that's, we're talking about a ranger that's probably going to have 12 or 13 hit points, probably 12. 35, I mean, that's, we're talking more than 200% increase. I mean, I don't think I should need to defend that that's significant. That's overwhelming amount of increase.
I would compare it a bit. It's better than the feature I'm going to bring up. But Second Wind at first level is a D10 plus 1.
But it's healing. And I don't
it's
think
healing.
I don't think healing's is effective at level 1. At level 1, healing requires you to take damage beforehand, which means that, if we want to be using this buffs you before the combat begins. So before every combat, you're going to have an additional, 8 or 9 hit points every combat, and you don't even need to heal it.
Yeah, it's big.
Yeah, it's really
big.
I think it's really big. Yeah.
If this was the only thing they get, if they don't also get favored foe, I'd be fine with it.
And I believe I mentioned in the video, adding these two together, I thought really treaded on other classes, because now we're giving the ranger the defense and the offense beyond what other classes have, and I don't think that fixes the ranger. I think the ranger needs a niche. I don't think it needs to be the fighting class, and especially we don't want a level 1. Level 1 sees more play than any other level. We don't need one fighting class to overshadow the other martials at that level. That's my opinion. And again, I think this could be fixed. All you'd have to do is say Canny level 1, Roving level 6, Tireless level 10. I think it'd be fine. It's my issue is the ability to select Tireless at level 1.
Yeah, I think Roving into Canny into Tireless, or basically, not Tireless level 1 is the only thing.
If
with
you were
Canny, we get into an issue we had before.
Yeah.
We discussed this in the last video when talking about the second level replacement feature for the Barbarian.
Yeah, and we've had that conversation already. And you know what? I'll give you that. If you were to take Roving at level 1 and Kenny at level 6 and Tireless at level 10, I don't think that's broken either. I think it makes more sense. I mean, if you're going to restrict these on the level they could be taken, it would seem obvious to me to just have them in the order they're presented. I think that fits very nicely. Then I like it. But this being able to pick Tireless at level 1, I have a problem with that.
Yeah. I personally love Roving. I think it's super flavorful. I think it's really what a ranger is. And it's useful, because getting the climbing speed can actually be really big when you're playing an archer-type character. Because to get up to the good archery spots, you usually need to make athletics checks. But if you have a climbing speed, you oftentimes don't need to.
And especially if it's something like a tree, I mean, then if we're talking about flavor of the ranger, I love that. You got your Elven Ranger, the combat begins, they just kind of reach up to the branch and hop themselves up on it. Again, I like these. I just don't like the
Tireless. Yeah. At level 1 specifically.
That's right. I think that's my position on that. I think that's mainly what I discussed in the video. And what's your opinion? Would you agree that Tireless shouldn't be a level 1 ability?
In its current form, okay. So the thing is, this is stupid strong. But so is the sleep spell.
Yeah, but if somebody has a sleep spell, that's their thing, right? When I have a level 1 character and a sleep spell, once in a while I can use sleep, and that's my thing. I get that one round every every other battle or so where I can do something astounding. But I mean, the ranger already has decent armor. They have decent weapons. They have decent hit points. Even a player's handbook ranger at level 1, I would say it's weaker than some of the other martial classes, but I don't think it's dramatically weaker at level 1.
I think it's dramatically weaker based on the fact that they do not have a fighting style. They have ranger gets nothing outside of.
Neither does a paladin.
They have lay on hands, which is absolutely massive at that level. Lay on hands healing for 1 is so big.
Well, it also uses your action. But I agree. I'm not going to argue that lay on hands isn't good. But so, I mean, I played.
Ranger is the worst martial
at level 1. I agree there too. I just don't think it's dramatic. I mean, yeah, lay on hands. I would say they are objectively worse. But I don't think it's dramatic. I don't think it's anywhere near so dramatic that you need to be giving them 35 more damage they can take.
Yeah, that's a little over the top.
Yeah,
probably.
Okay. I mean, I think we disagree in degrees, but I think ultimately, would you agree that canny, roving, tireless in that order would make sense? That would be fine.
That would be entirely balanced. I think also, if you start your campaign at level 3, having tireless as the first option is not a problem.
Every level you add, I think it becomes less of a problem. I'm not sure I want to throw the number in. I know it's I know by level 10 I'm totally comfortable with it. And at level 1 I'm totally uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
If you were to say what about giving it as the level 6, I'd say I'm not sure that's a huge problem, but I do think it just canny, roving, tireless. I would, if it was up to me, that would be the order.
Personally, as a ranger player, I'd want roving before I want canny.
I might too. I think roving's more powerful than canny. Then again, is that not a good reason to have it the level 6 ability? And again, you're playing a ranger, and you have natural explorer, and I say, here's your option. Instead of that, you can give that up. We'll give you this at level 1, this at level 6, this at level 10. I think any person who has knowledge of the rules is going to jump at that.
Hey, do you want a +1 to persuasion checks instead of natural explorer? I'd probably take it.
Yeah.
That sounds more useful.
Yeah.
I think roving is a bit more powerful. Also, it's just that the expertise isn't that strong. Like, it's just +2.
Well, at level 1, expertise isn't dramatic. But it's also an additional skill known. And rangers get 3.
Yeah.
Well, rogues are getting 4. And then it brings you in line, and they're getting expertise in 2 skills. You're getting expertise in 1, so you're not quite where the rogue is, but you're feeling skill heavy, which is, I think, fine for a ranger. Now, I got some feedback on that too when I did it my ranger variant. Some people thought that ranger shouldn't be so skill heavy, but I do. That's my personal opinion on it. So anyway, I think we're not far here from each other.
Yeah, I think the big thing is, if you consider allowing this in your campaign, think about what level are you playing at. If you're playing at level 1 or 2, you want to restrict tireless. 3, maybe still. 4, maybe still. But 5, certainly not anymore at that point.
Yeah, well, at 5, yeah. And I'll say this too. Again, temporary hit points are something that, as you go up in levels, there become more and more ways to get temporary hit points. You got somebody with Inspiring Leader. You have a way of getting temporary hit points fairly reliably already. Tireless would still be useful because those hit points will run out. I absolutely think Tireless is something that it becomes significantly less a problem every level you add. But certainly by level 10, I think it is just fine. And I don't think it's bad. I think at level 10, it's still a good ability. I think it's far more in line with what I would like to see. But yeah, I think we're not that far apart here.
Yeah.
Let's move on to favorite foe.
Yeah.
So favorite foe, this one here is pretty dramatic. And Jeremy, in that interview I watched with Jeremy Crawford today, he said, just count on when it comes out. If this ever reaches official, the concentration mechanic will be gone. The no concentration mechanic, he said, it's not going to survive. So apparently they didn't know that already. So I don't know why they have it there to begin with. But essentially, this is going to let you use Hunter's Mark 3 times a day at level 1 without concentration. My issue with this, my main issue with this, is that it screws 2-weapon fighting. Now, I know 2-weapon fighting is already bad, but do we need to make it worse? I mean, and the other thing is I'm not sure the not requiring concentration, I don't think necessarily that's a problem, but I'm not sure that's the advantage that you need to be giving here. So if I was to change this, I would have it so that it did require concentration, but maybe you could change the target by hitting them with a weapon attack, and then I think it would work much nicer for a 2-weapon fighter. And I don't think that concentration is a problem, but that's my opinion on it. Now, as you go up in levels, concentration can be used in a lot of different ways for rangers. So non-concentration actually might be a bigger problem at higher levels. At first level, it's not a problem. What's your opinion on this?
Okay. I think when Jeremy Crawford said that the no concentration is not going to survive,
Yeah.
It might just be that it's not going to survive at the low levels, because he specifically mentioned multi-class dips for the no concentration. Right?
He did. Yeah. And you know what? I think he's right there too.
Yeah, like if I'm a fighter and I see this version of Ranger, I'm taking a level.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like using my bonus. Yeah. I think I will. But I think the concept in general is amazing, especially for the melee ranges. Because melee ranges don't keep concentration.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's true. That's true. Well, it depends if whether they're targeted with attacks or not. But you're right. Ranger is not proficient in Constitution saving throws. They have no bonuses on making concentration saving throws. So if you want to drop their concentration, it's usually not hard.
Rangers also cannot take the Warcaster feat as a variant human. Actually, now they can.
Oh, because you need to be able to cast a spell. Yeah.
Yes, but now you can. So, but now you don't need to.
Yeah.
So that's a big problem. So I really like that for the melee ranges. Now, 2-weapon fighting, I think again is a case of it's a problem within the system. Why should we not improve the parts of the systems that work just because the parts that don't work still don't work?
Oh, I can answer that. Because it's a sore spot. Because that is a pain spot. Because some people who play Rangers play 2-weapon fighters and they're frustrated. And we could alleviate that. And if we're going to do playtesting, why don't we playtest that? Why don't we find the places where people are having less fun than they should, and then give them a chance? Now, I'm not saying that being able to switch your Hunter's Mark by hitting somebody with a weapon attack fixes 2-weapon fighting. That's not my claim. But my claim is that it would alleviate it to some degree. It would give them something, especially with a 2-weapon fighting Ranger, which is it wasn't always iconic, but it's become somewhat iconic.
It is now.
Yeah, I mean, Drist happened, right? And now everyone wants to play a Drow 2-weapon fighting Ranger with a Panther. Sorry, in 5th edition you can't do that. At least this would alleviate that. If you want to play Drist or your Drist clone, he's Brist, and he's nothing like Drist because he wears a hat. Then at least you would give them something. Throw them a bone. Throw them a bone, Stefan.
I think. So the bone that I would throw them is that if you have the 2-weapon fighting style, you can take a feat, so you don't need a bonus action anymore to make the attack. And that masks out well compared to Polar Master and Great Weapon Master and all that stuff. It comes it's still a bit worse than those, but
Okay.
it works well. It's like just a couple of points behind, to the point that I consider it not perceptible within the game. Actually, it's more like if you're in a game playing with feats, then you can't just have the 2-weapon fighting style work that way. But if you're in a game without feats, you can't have the 2-weapon fighting style work that way. Because of how the math works. Basically, if you make the 2-weapon fighting style for Ranger work that way, you deal a couple of points less damage than like a Polar Master Fighter or Battle Master. You know, like the classic things would do, the Crossbow Expert Sharpshooter Ranger. But if you were to put that into a game without feats, now you're just running away from everyone because you're dealing 1,000,000 damage and have one more attack.
Okay. Now, so let's say you're the DM, and you're presenting that you're going to allow some of this UA options for players. Are you presenting favored foe as is, or are you altering it?
I present it as is. Maybe what I would so one is you can't have it if you're multi-classing.
Okay. So
That is
with the restriction that you can only have it if you're a straight ranger. What if I'm playing a ranger and I take it, and then later on I decide I want a multi-class?
You need to be primarily a ranger.
Okay.
Basically.
Okay.
The idea is this is a fragile piece of content.
Yeah.
Do not abuse it.
And I will say that from a balance perspective, I don't know how no concentration would rangers get other concentration stuff with spells, and I don't know how it will interact. And so I'm not going to say don't do it because of that, but I will say I don't know how it will interact. So just be aware of that. So I'm not going. I'm not going to give you any additional warnings other than you're going into uncharted territory.
Yeah, you're giving them the option to use spells like Zephyr Strike, Ensnaring Strike, Hail of Thorns. So we will see that the rangers will become a bit more proactive paladin-y. They can pick a couple of more burst scenarios with this change.
Yeah.
And also
because
they have a reason to go into melee.
Smite doesn't doesn't use your concentration either. So you can, if you're a paladin, you can do smite and then do a concentration effect. So this would be similar in that kind of respect. I think that's pretty much all we need to say about favored foe.
Yeah.
Fighting.
The only thing that
go ahead.
I'm kind of curious about is the free uses. This is just adding damage to the ranger at no opportunity cost.
Yeah.
I think if you instead make it cost a spell slot, and like obviously that then doesn't work with level 1, can do like 1 free use, for example, which shouldn't be a big deal, but like wisdom modifiers with 3 free uses is maybe a bit much. Yeah. I'm not sure, but I feel like there should be some opportunity cost to it, especially since you are getting the security of not losing it anymore. But basically, in the best case scenario, the ranger gets the full duration out of the hunter's mark at the moment.
Yeah, and just so people know, the duration of hunter's mark is pretty good. It's 1 hour if you cast it as a first level spell. So you can expect if you use it and you're kind of doing your standard adventure that you'll get to basically in between short rests, right, for the entire. So if you do 2, 3, 4 encounters, you could probably have it for all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And assuming 1 or 2 short rests, so favored foe would mean you would have hunter's mark all the time. That's essentially what it does.
What I try to make sure is that the currently best case ranger still needs to spend the spell slot.
Yeah.
Then they get to keep it. So maybe make them spend the spell slot too, just so that you have the bad rangers that are getting closer to the best ranger, but the best ranger stays relatively stationary, similar to other changes to classes we've seen.
And if we did it as one for free, and of course you can, as a ranger, use your spell slots on this ability as written. But if we were to change the free to once, a first level ranger is still getting a significant boost here, I think. So let's move on to fighting style options. We've gone over those, but we've added Druidic Warrior. I think that a ranger benefits more from Druidic Warrior than a paladin gets from their equivalent ability, just because of Shillelagh. Though bonus actions are tough for rangers as is, but potentially they could benefit a little bit more. But again, I think this is probably not as good as other fighting styles. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's again one of the. You can probably make something neat with this.
Yeah.
There might be something that exists. I've seen a Twitter thread that mentioned like a tank wisdom max
Yes.
ranger
Yes.
stuff.
And
I didn't
yeah, I looked
quite
at
read
that
it.
too. Yeah, the basic idea was that you would go all wisdom, and then you could really benefit from things like tireless. So I would have allowed the build in the first place, but and then you would use Shillelagh because, of course, that uses your wisdom, and then you
I mean,
wouldn't.
going really wisdom adds like 3 temporary hit points from Talus. Oh no, wait, you get an
You
extra
get an
use
extra
too.
use, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh.
So that was kind of the idea of it. It was a neat build, considering if you were to use the UA as written.
Yeah.
But anyway, overall, I'd say Druidic Warrior. I'd say for most
Why not?
Rangers, I have no problem with it. I think it's a little weaker. Just be aware of that. Ranger spells. So my issue here was I thought now we're really treading on the Paladin. That was my view, is what is Searing Smite and Blinding Smite doing on a Ranger spell list? I just don't get why they would throw those at the Ranger. It didn't make any sense to me. What about you?
I suspect what's happening is that there is some kind of ranger that I don't know that does this kind of stuff. Like that there's something in the Forgotten Realms novels or so. We have like rangers that are charging their swords with fire. Like more elemental warrior. Maybe it's a bit like in the Dragonlance setting direction. Like you have the more
I couldn't
primordial
tell you.
forces.
Very possibly. There's a lot of books.
Yeah. Like there's probably somewhere a ranger in D&D canon, somewhere in the multiverse who does this and people want to play him. Or
Yeah,
her.
of course, that's probably true of pretty much anything you could come up with, right? You could say that
Yeah.
too of, well, I read this book where the ranger had a magical shield, right? Okay, so do we give the ranger the shield spell? I don't see why it's there. Yeah, I mean, you can make that character. You can already make that character. Maybe
Yeah.
they're not a straight ranger, right?
I think it just depends on like what your image of the ranger is. And
Yeah, okay. My image of the ranger is they don't use smites.
well, I think
I agree
smite
with
is kind of
I agree with adding flavorful things for attacks for rangers that are different than things that paladins can do. So that when we have things like ensnaring strike, which you could argue is similar to a smite spell, I like that in a ranger because I think it gives them something unique that might be similar mechanically, but flavorfully it makes me think ranger. That's if I read that spell, that's what I'm thinking. When I read blinding smite, I'm not.
is it just the name? Because I think the concept of a ranger charging their sword with divine energy and then banging the opponent, blinding them in radiance,
It's
is
not.
not necessarily not rangery.
It's not just the flavor. It is also that I like classes being unique from each other, and I think if you're going to change the classes and give them new stuff, those things should not be things other classes can do. I think you're much better giving them. When I look at favored foe, if I'm going to defend it in any way, no other class can do that. But when you just say, okay, well, you know how paladins can do this? Well, now rangers can do it too. To me, you're not enhancing the ranger, you're just muddying the waters. Interesting abilities are abilities where you can do it and the guy beside you can't do it, no matter what it is. And I think I've made that pretty clear in my variants too. I've always pushed, when I did the sorcerer, I pointed out I don't want to give them more spells known because that's not what makes a sorcerer unique, and that's what makes a wizard unique. I want them to be unique in a different way. I would want rangers to be unique in a different way. So don't just give them a bunch of paladin stuff. If you're going to give them stuff that's unique for them, makes them feel different from playing a paladin, not stuff
Okay.
that puts them on par with paladins by giving them paladin stuff.
Okay, I agree on the smite spells, because like smite is very paladin.
Yeah.
The other things we see, the entangled, the aid, the guess, those are a lot of druid things.
Yep. And I think there already is muddied water between a ranger and a druid, so I don't have a problem with that, because a ranger already does stuff that they're your nature warriors, and the druids are nature casters. So if you're going to give rangers casting, there's going to be parity between those two classes. So yeah, Entangle's one. I'm like we talked about before. It's something I was surprised wasn't already on the ranger spell list, but then I remembered, oh yeah, Entangle's really good. So I would have noticed if it had been on the ranger spell list, but I think it should be there. If you want to make a ranger more powerful, Entangle is a way I would do it. Searing Smite is a way I wouldn't.
Yeah, I heavily suspect there's some kind of story where, who knows, maybe Drizzt has a flaming sword in the most recent novel, and I don't know.
That wouldn't shock me.
I mean, then we're...
Salvatore loves Drizzt.
Well, I just recently recently finished the Elminster books, all of them.
Oh,
and I just started.
I can't stand the Elminster books. But we're getting into a different topic.
Yeah, we're getting into it. But yeah, I just recently started with Drizzt, and it's very well written, very interesting. The inner monologue of that character is amazing, so I get why people want to play him. I mean, it's not unreasonable. He can do some fire stuff. So who knows? This might be leading up to the next Drizzt book, because they know the pipeline.
Yeah. Maybe
in general, so. I love a lot of these spells, and a lot of these spells are kind of paladin-y, like the Aid, the Revivify, the Death Ward, the Great Restoration.
Yeah, it seemed like Revivify. Everyone got Revivify. What was that about?
I like it. Maybe I can go a bit more big picture on this, because Chris, what is your opinion on this statement? We need a cleric.
No, you don't. Oh, okay.
I disagree.
Yeah? How so?
I think, no you don't, 5e is a very open system, etc., etc. It's all fun and games until someone dies at level 5.
Except, I would say that D&D 5e, unlike any other system I've played up to now, involves less character death. Characters do not die easily in 5th edition compared to any other fantasy role-playing game that I've played up to now, and I've played a few, including all the D&Ds.
I agree. But part of that is because the cleric gets it so easily.
Part of it is it's harder to die in the first place.
True.
The whole mechanics of death saves make it so that you can play a campaign that has no bring back the dead ability and have no one die. Which actually I like. I like that because honestly, the whole I died, came back gets old. I prefer having options that prevent you from dying in the first place. But we could talk about this this for a long time too. And I would love to get through the Ranger before you run out of time.
So what I like is what I see in this entire Unearthed Arcana. I think we need a cleric is a thing that is very present in the community's perception of the game. And I think it's partially true. I think you're definitely not absolutely screwed if you don't have a cleric in your party. But I think parties with a cleric tend to be stronger than parties without one. And a lot of the things that the cleric has more or less a monopoly over are being given to multiple classes. We see this. Rangers now get magic weapon. Paladins had it before. Wizards could take it, I think. I think it's a wizard spell, but who's going to add that to their spellbook?
It is, yeah.
Right. Like, you don't have the spell as a wizard. So we have now the ranger as magic weapon, so we don't need the cleric as much anymore for that eventuality of really needing that spell, because like when you need the spell, you really need it.
Yeah, sorcerers can fill that role too now.
Sorcerers can fill that role.
Yeah.
We're giving aid to ranger. We're giving aid to the bard. We're giving Greater Restoration and Death Ward and Revivify to the Ranger. We're giving tongues to classes. We're giving enhanceability to the Ranger, to the Wizard. We're giving Sorceress their kind of own enhanceability for expanding spells points. We're giving Sorceress also a kind of magic weapon. We're seeing a ton, and the most important thing in my mind is the Revivify on the Druid. This just adds so much security. Like, yes, character death in 5e isn't that common, but the difference of how the game feels with and without the cleric in the party who can cast Revivify if necessary is immense in my experience.
Though,
And now we see these...
Though I find that most people who say we need a cleric are talking about healing.
Yeah, some people think healing is the important part.
Yeah. That's actually kind of the
lesser restoration.
I agree that clerics are better at other kinds of recovery, and I think it's a misconception that the clerics are the best at healing, but that is a common misconception.
Yes.
Yeah. I think we do need to move on. We could talk about this a long time too.
Yeah. So what I like about the entire UA is that the things cleric has monopoly over are being given to so many other classes at so many different points that now I would actually say that without a cleric, you can still be very strong. Like, you could be very strong before, but the lack of Revivify at levels 5 to 8 is very noticeable. And you get it back now. You get more magic weapons. There's less of a need for a cleric than there was before, while not invalidating the cleric at all.
Okay.
I like that.
We're going to move on. Spell versus...
I think all of these spells are fine.
Okay. Spell versus...
kind of talked about... talked about 8 in the video. And said that it encroaches even more on the Barbarian. But
oh, yeah. Well, yeah. But it's mainly, and again, if we agree that Tireless shouldn't be a first level ability, then I revoke that.
Okay.
Yeah. I was specifically looking at the UA. If you presented it all as presented, I think then it creates a bigger problem. Or it takes a problem that you've already put in and makes it worse. But yeah, no, I revoke that if we're in agreement on Tireless. Spell versatility. So changing out spells for a ranger, I think, is vital. And there's different ways you could do it. I like prepared casting, but if you're going to keep it spells known, I'm good with spell versatility. I assume you're okay with it as well?
Yes.
Spellcasting focus, I think, is a mainly just... I don't think it's a big ability. I don't think it does much, but I have no problem with it. Do you see that way as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. I don't think... Okay, you can use a focus. You weren't using one to begin with, but okay. Or you weren't going to use one. I mean, it makes no difference. Use a component pouch, use a focus, whatever you like.
There's some kind of things now. Well, now you can use a staff, which you can use as
potentially
your weapon,
use as a shillelagh. Yeah, okay.
Which you can use with shillelagh too, and it can be your arcane focus, which really helps the shield and staff ranger because you can't access your components when you have your hands full.
Okay.
That is actually relevant for some rangers.
Yeah. Okay.
Even if you take Warcaster, I don't think... If you don't have a focus at all...
Warcaster doesn't help you. Warcaster doesn't help on material components. Yeah. Yeah. And so we would definitely both allow that. And yeah, that's a good point. If there is a specific kind of build for ranger that could take advantage of that. I think most rangers are going to see a big difference from adding that. So Primal Awareness adds a whole bunch of spells. If we're looking at a 5th level ranger, it's about 100% increase in spells known. But these are all super circumstantial spells. So these are not spells that most days you're probably not even going to cast these. Speak with plants, not going to cast it, right? Most of the time. Once in a while you might. The one thing I noted was you could cast them all without expending a spell slot. And it did concern me a little bit that my druid is not going to be as good at these spells now as a ranger. What was your view?
Okay, so early on you said that you really like the ranger as like a skilled type class.
Yep.
This adds that. It's not literally skills,
No,
but
but in terms of
yeah,
that kind of feel, I get what you're saying.
yeah.
Do
This
you have
is
any concerns about druids not being able to do the same thing?
um. All right, so
So my ninth
here's
level
the
ranger
problem.
can cast Speak with Plants without using a spell slot. My
Yes.
druid can't. Do you have an issue with that? I have a bit of an issue with
Okay.
that. But
Um.
maybe the solution is that the ranger can speak, or that the druid could speak with plants without using a spell slot. Maybe that's the solution.
I
Yeah.
think if we look at the reality of the thing, your druid is not preparing that spell,
No, they're not.
right? Like you don't want to do it. So we have two options here. We can either say no one in the entire game should ever want to cast this spell, or we could actually like use this very fun spell as a class ability somewhere.
We have a third option. What if Primal Awareness was a druid ability instead of a ranger ability?
Ooh. Um.
Would you think it would be better placed in the druid than the ranger? I think, again, I would allow Primal Awareness, and I don't have a problem with it. And I think it adds a lot of flavor. I wonder if they threw it in the right class.
I wouldn't want to miss it from the ranger. I will say that.
Okay. What if you added it to both?
I think it being added to druid would be very, very nice too.
Yeah, I just think these are spells that I think of druid, and therefore I don't have a problem with ranger. I think I discussed that already. But it seems strange to me that the ranger can and the druid can't speak with
Yeah.
plants, can't locate animals and plants. I mean, the druid technically can, but they're not as good at it now as a ranger. And I would love to see druids being able to do this kind of stuff too. I guess that's my main thing. But again, primal awareness I would allow as written. I don't have
Yes.
yeah
And I think the casting once per day part is a very essential part of this.
yeah
Because as we said, as a druid, you do not even want to prepare these spells, let alone cast them.
yeah
So getting the free uses here, unlike with the Hunter's Mark, is super appropriate.
yeah
This adds something. And being able to do it as an action is also super important. Because we see something like the Totem Barbarian, they get speak with animals as a ritual. And how often has your bear Totem Barbarian used speak with animals?
yeah.
I bet most people don't even know that feature exists, because
They
when you sit down to ritual cast the spell, the
they
animal
write it on
runs
their
away.
character sheet, and that's about as far as it goes.
No,
Of course,
they don't.
well, I do, but anyway, yeah, I agree. With the barbarian too, I don't think there is. It makes as much sense as it does for druids and rangers. But let's move. We would allow this, and we both recommend it. Fade away. I thought was mechanically, I thought was the perfect fix for hide in plain sight. I think it's what mechanically hide in plain sight should do. I thought it could use a reskin to make it feel less magic-y and more natural. But in terms of mechanics, I like it. What was your view?
Yes, basically the same. I think the language used with invisible is very convenient for playtesting because everyone knows how it works. That way you don't have to work with something like you're heavily obscured to others,
Yeah,
which would like do the same thing but make more sense. Like nature spins around you, something like
and
in a
if you
storm
want to
of
use
leaves.
this, and you don't want to have the that it is so easy for you to just explain it in a way that is more appropriate to the flavor. I don't just I mean you could just call it hide in plain sight and use these mechanics, and I think it fixes hide in plain sight. I think it just this is what hide in plain sight should have been to begin with. Um, uh, but anyway, yeah, we both think this is good, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about the companions for Beastmaster Ranger.
Hmm.
So Beastmaster Ranger's got what is a boost here, right? And obviously, I think you would be hard pressed to find somebody who thought the Beastmaster Ranger couldn't use a boost. I think there are ways to optimize a Beastmaster Ranger to make it okay. That I've done a video on that, but that doesn't mean that I don't think they should be boosted, and I do think they should. And this does boost them. So you get to choose Beast of the Earth, Beast of the Air. I don't think those sound overly interesting, but I think that that's just the way they're written. Your Beast of the Air is a hawk. Your Beast of the Earth is a panther. So that's not a problem. And hit points, I think this fixes the problem with hit points. I think it looks well thought out in terms of the amount of hit points it gives, and I'm all for that. The big change is here that I want to talk about maybe a little more. I assume you agree with what I said so far.
Yes.
Okay, so Primal Rebirth allows you to bring your companion back to life. A lot of people wanted that. So I have no problem with that being included. It felt like a low resource cost to me, but I like that it's in there. My recommendation would be have the Ranger have to use a hit die as well as the spell slot to use it, and I think it would be okay, or maybe even more than one hit die. I don't know exactly, but something like that. And then Ready Companion is, as a bonus action, you companion your beast to make the attack or hide. And I think that helps. But again, I don't think it helps your 2-weapon fighting Ranger. I would love to... I've always felt that Beastmaster should just be able to command their creature and it just keeps attacking without using your bonus action every round. That was my proposed fix, but I'm curious what you think.
Okay, so again, I think accounting for 2-weapon fighting is not a good thing to do, because no one can be happy as long as one is unhappy. I don't think that's a very good way to go about designing
I think,
rules.
I think there are players who, although they would not be as effective as other martial classes, if you gave them a 2-weapon fighting Ranger that could have a Panther as a companion, and they could attack with both their weapons and have the Panther attack, I think they would be happy, even if...
You can do that.
How do you do that?
I use my action with extra attack. I have 2 weapons. I attack with one weapon. I attack with the other weapon. I'm not even 2-weapon fighting at this point. I'm just attacking with a weapon I'm holding in my hand. And then I command my Panther to attack as a bonus action. It works.
Okay, how about a 3rd level?
That would be neat. Yeah, you're right.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
You know what would really help there?
What?
If the 2-weapon fighting style lets you do it as part of the attack action.
I agree.
Yeah. So, but I feel like there are many easy fixes for the 2-weapon fighting.
Yeah. And you know what?
So
when it comes to Beastmaster Ranger, there are a billion variants out there, right? You don't just have to look at UA. There are entire Reddits devoted to fixing Beastmaster Rangers. And if you want to see a million different solutions, this is one you will see already. It exists. But there are lots of other ones I think are better. Yeah.
Okay. So I agree that Primal Rebirth is a bit on the cheap side. We have to look at... It has 5 times Ranger level hit points. And it's going to be flying around at like 16, 17 AC. So it's a bit less than the average PC that's going to be tanking.
Yeah, it's definitely tougher than the initial Beast Companion, but it's
100%.
But it's definitely less powerful. I'm not sure, and I mentioned this in my Beastmaster video. I'm not sure that your companion is necessarily going to be the primary target of most enemies, because it doesn't do the damage that a PC does.
It's attacking 2 times around, whereas the PC is attacking once.
Well, it depends how
it depends on how you space it up, but like at level 5, you can have bonus action attack, one of your attacks attack, and then you attack once. So I think narratively, it definitely makes sense that if the beast is very in your face to the opponent, it takes a lot of hurt. But in general, assuming the beast gets downed at some point, It's gonna have, say we're level 6, we have a bit more than 30 hit points that we tanked with our now down beast. And as of now, we can restore these entire 30 hit points for a first level spell slot, which is damage that the party didn't take. So essentially, we're healing the party for a bit less than 30 damage.
Well, and now that you mention it, I just want to add in. Just think about this for a second. So you're playing this character, and your hawk goes down, but it doesn't die. It makes its death saves, and it is stable. Are you better off?
No.
Are you better off stabbing this thing in the neck so that you can get its full hit points back, or spending more spell slots to recover it?
Technically, the DM decides if it makes death saves.
That's true, but usually I find with something like this, the DM is going to allow death saves. Is that what you want? Is you want it to have it so that your ranger is tempted to slice the throat of your beast companion?
Not at all. I think that's really dumb. I think that's a problem with the Grave Domain Cleric too.
Yeah.
But if I was DMing for this, I'm not sure if I would basically allow the ranger. So doing it as like a formal rules way, I'd not give the thing death saves. Doing it as a like fun thing way, I would give it death saves, and if it's at 0 or 1 or whatever, the ranger can still use the Primal Rebirth, basically. And after 1 minute, it heals to full.
Yeah. You could do it so that it doesn't have to be dead.
Yeah.
Because that just occurred to me, but I just thought, oh, that's morbid. But technically,
that is the correct play. I think.
Now I know you.
Yeah,
you probably have to go pretty soon.
Well, sadly, one of my players just called in sick.
Oh,
so
do you want to keep talking?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then let's do that.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you were to allow Beast of the Earth and Beast of the Air, I think you're going to be better off than if you played it with the Player's Handbook. I'm not sure it's the best fix I've seen, but if you wanted to use these instead of the Player's Handbook version, I think it is better than the Player's Handbook version. But I do think some tweaking could sure help.
Okay.
Yeah.
One question.
Yeah.
Why is the Beast of the Air more tanky than the Beast of the Earth?
Oh, that's a good question. No good reason. No good reason. Yeah,
so
and the flyby. Yeah, they get flyby attack. They should do less damage. Is what should happen, right? They do more damage, and they do. And
it's weird maths if they do more damage or not because of the charge adding another d6.
Okay, but if we assume that the creature isn't always charging, when the creature isn't charging, why is your panther doing less damage than a hawk? Yeah, I agree. That doesn't make sense. I'd reverse those. I'd reverse Maul and Shred.
The dexterity thing kind of makes sense, but those are like super small. So the more tanky is like 1 AC difference.
Yeah. I see why they did it
mechanically.
Mechanically, I can see why they did it, right? Because they're doing dexterity versus strength. You don't necessarily want a medium beast. Like 14 strength makes sense. Yeah, but I don't know what. So I don't. But yeah, you're right. I don't.
The make Beast of the Earth have 6 times your ranger level HP or something.
Yeah. No, it's still 5 times.
Yeah, but maybe you should do it 6 times.
Oh, give it more hit points. Yeah,
right. Yeah. So, well, technically, it has more hit points. It has a whopping 1 more hit point.
Yeah.
But it has 1 less AC, which is like very meaningful.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Especially when, I mean, if it was 12 to 13, I'd say who cares? It's terrible. But because you're adding your proficiency bonus, they're going to have a decent armor class. And once you get into 16 to 17 or 17 to 18, that is a lot of hits that become misses or vice versa.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that is very one important mathematical truth about the game that not many people are aware of. People say that 1 point of AC is 5% defense, but that's not the case.
No,
each point of AC is exponentially worth more than the previous one until every additional point is useless. Because
once a 20 hits, then think about it this way: If only a 20 hits, you have a 5% chance to hit. If a 19 or 20 hits, you have a 10% chance to hit. You've doubled your chance to hit. So that's the very quick and easy way to explain that.
So gaining that point of AC is reducing the damage you take by half.
Yeah.
Or in other words, doubling the amount of time you survive.
Yeah, so switching the armor classes might be a possibility here. I do think, as written, Beast of the Air is better than Beast of the Earth, but if I wanted to play Ranger with a Panther, I'd be much happier with Beast of the Earth than playing with a Panther.
I think Beast of the Earth is better.
Than Beast of the Air?
Yes.
And how so?
Because the Beast of the Earth will be attacked, and that's good.
Okay, I can see that. Beast of the Air has more value. Yeah, especially when you have Primal Rebirth.
Yeah, I want them to be hit, and also Beast of the Earth might knock them prone, which is better than just the raw damage that the flying creature has.
Okay.
So I think Beast of the Earth is better, but it's like super slim. Maybe it's not better than having your Beast of the Air be in the face of the opponent and not fly away.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we both agree that this is a positive change, obviously, and I don't think that's a high bar, right? The player's handbook, Beastmaster Ranger, the designers know they screwed it up. And this definitely moves things in the right direction.
Yes. What I really like about this solution is that it is super simple.
Yeah.
Just in case someone is looking at this and they think, wait, this is way worse than my Panther. They only have 12 AC. My Panther is like 14, 15. Keep in mind that this feature enhances the Ranger Companion. So to all the ACs and the proficient skills and saves, and attack rolls and damage rolls.
And the additional attack at level 11.
And the additional attack at level 11. But you get to add your proficiency bonus in so many places. So it's not a +5 to it, it's a +7 at level 3. It's not a d6 +3 slashing damage, it's a d6 +5, I believe.
Yeah. This is a big boost from Player's Handbook version. And again, I don't think you're going to find it's too powerful. I don't think. But it's hard to say for sure, but that's my gut feeling.
If anything, it adds tankiness to a party, and that tends to not be the problem.
Yeah. So let's move on. Let's move to the rogue.
Yes.
So the rogue only got one thing. They just get aim, which the designers say was basically intended to make sure that the rogue could always do their sneak attack. So that, if you don't have your sneak attack for some reason, you could always use aim. Now, I generally find I don't have a problem getting sneak attack with my rangers. My issue with this mainly was that at level 2, this is an ability that you can use to get your sneak attack, but it also makes it so you can't move on your turn, which is not a problem at all if you're using a bow. But if you're not using a bow, I think it's a pretty big problem. And especially if you need to move into an enemy to attack them. Your melee character, your melee rogue, and at second level, I don't think your melee rogue is up to snuff compared to an archery rogue, is not benefiting from this. Well, the archery rogue is. And so that seemed misplaced for me. The other thing for me with the rogue was, of course, we've touched on this before. I'm not sure the rogue is a problem at level 2. I think they're well balanced. But I do find, and I know some people disagree, but I do find that the rogue at higher levels could use something, and they have some abilities that I think are ripe for options that they could have done, and they didn't. And so that was a bit disappointing for me. What was your view on cutting aim?
I feel like this is another case where there's a feature that makes the bad or unfortunate rogues better, but the best rogues stay basically the same. So you mentioned you don't have a trouble finding sneak attack.
No, I generally find it's pretty easy. Not necessarily advantage, but sneak attack, yes.
Yeah. So this feature I think, is intended partly to protect rogues from bad DMs.
Yeah, I agree, because some DMs will make it, there's nowhere for you to hide. Or you've hidden there before, so you can't hide again. So it prevents using hide and so this is an alternative. Again, by making it speed 0, it's an alternative for archery rogues, but not for melee rogues most of the time.
Mainly, yeah. It's mainly archery rogues, but it's also mainly the archery rogues that end up in those controversies where the DMs don't quite execute the hiding rules as the designers intended.
Yeah, and the designers have not helped on this, because they have, as people have asked questions about hide, I think they've given some unhelpful answers. But I agree that bad DMs can be a problem for rogues, and frankly, I prefer the idea of a rogue hopping in and out of hiding and such. But again, yeah, if your DM screws that kind of thing, you're screwing that Lightfoot halfling that was using cunning action with hide with another party member to hide behind them. But again, it's not helping your melee Lightfoot halfling unless you are already in melee. But if you need to move into melee, you can't use this. So again, I think it helps archery rogues more than melee rogues. Now, you got Booming Blade at level 5 available. You can do it with an Arcane Trickster, or you could just take a Magical Initiate feat, and suddenly melee rogues do a lot better. So if this was added at, say, level 5, it would make a lot more sense to me.
But so that is actually something that I just thought about. That you're right. I can now gain advantage on my Booming Blade attack, which I couldn't before. That's really, really big, because the Booming Blade attack is already competitive with the damage you normally do with advantage without Booming Blade. So that is really big.
Only at level 5 and higher, yeah.
Yeah, that only starts taking off at level 5.
Yeah.
But in general, like at level 11, a Booming Blade attack without advantage that procs sneak attack is in a similar area as an advantage shortbow attack, proccing the sneak attack. So now the Booming Blade can get advantage on that roll. That is big, which I hadn't thought of. But mostly, I don't think it matters much at the low levels for multiple reasons. So the expected rogue,
Yep.
they're ranged, and they try to hide. They have a 3 in dexterity. They have proficiency and expertise in stealth. They try to hide. They have a +7 to their check. They roll at least a 1 on the d20. So that's an 8. Most monsters at the level have like 9, 10, or 11 passive perception.
Yeah, hide should work most of the time. And that's another bad DM thing. The DM that has the enemy roll their perception every time. You're just slowing down gameplay and making things worse, and it's not how the game works. You're just playing it wrong.
The worst one I've seen so far, or heard of so far, luckily not seen, is since to shoot them you have to come out of your cover, you're no longer hidden before you shoot.
Oh, I've heard that one too.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah.
And that is why this cunning action is here, I'm pretty sure. That is the big one.
Okay, let me propose a small tweak to it and see what you think.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to keep it as it is, except we were to say at level 5, what would I do? What if we were just to not reduce speed to 0? What if we were just to keep it as is, but without the speed limitation? Do you think that would be a problem, and if so, how?
Suddenly you have like the swashbuckler getting the disengages easily. I don't know. I think without the speed limitation...
Are we worried about the swashbuckler getting too powerful? I'm not.
I mean, okay, it's fair. It's not the Arcane Trickster, right? It's also really good for the Arcane Trickster, though.
Yes, it is. Yeah. But you know what? At level 5, you know what fighters get? Extra attack. So do barbarians. So do rangers. So do paladins. So giving a rogue a little bit more oomph at those levels, I don't think is a problem either.
But I feel like the rogue already has the oomph.
Yeah,
Like the ranged rogue has 46 plus dex with advantage, and the melee rogue has 2d8 plus 3d6 plus dexterity. So it maths out to be about the same as the extra attack classes.
So your thing is that the fact that it hurts a melee rogue might not be a bad thing after Booming Blade and such become really good.
That is the one thing, and the other thing is, I think with the speed 0 thing, you're also making sure that it doesn't suddenly become better than Cunning Action Hide, right?
Right.
Because if your intent was just your intent to hide is just so you can get advantage, because you hide and then shoot rather than shoot and then hide and wait for next turn, then Cunning Action Aim is just suddenly a Cunning Action Hide with no chance of failure.
All you have to do is play with me, and I'll say, no. You know what you should do? You should use your Cunning Action after you attack.
Yeah,
and then
depends.
And then as soon as you figure that out, then that's what you do. A lot of players haven't figured that out yet. I get that, but once you do figure it out,
sure.
It's the way.
I'm not sure if it's the way, because like at least take some ranged attacks to share the hit dice. I think it depends on the situation.
I don't know. My rogue does not have good armor class. My rogue does not have a lot of hit points. I don't need to be taking a whole lot of damage. Let them hit the barbarian who takes resistance, or maybe the tireless ranger. But anyway.
Yeah, but in general, I think that by having the speed mechanic in there, you make sure that it doesn't surpass what rogues currently do.
Okay.
And that way you're not power creeping on a class that you, especially at those levels, perceived as good.
Okay.
Right?
What I would say is what I would like to see here, and I'm not sure what the fix is then. I'd like to see a way that between level 2 and 4, a melee character could get more use out of this. That's all I would ask.
I feel like at levels 2 to 4, so okay, it's always about defense, right? But in a purely offensive sense, the melee rogue does have the advantage over the ranged one.
Not those low level. Well, not significant. Yeah, I guess because they could always use a second weapon or something.
They can use the second attack. Yeah, and that's really big. That's really big because that's like an entire d6 damage at a level where you deal like 2d6 damage.
Unless we're looking at a variant human with crossbow expert.
That's true.
Yeah,
but then like is rogue really the class where we're gaining much by optimizing? I'm not sure.
Okay.
Like I'm not sure if the rogue is really the class that benefits a ton from the damaging feats.
Right. Well,
so
I'll take crossbow expert with a rogue personally, if it's ranged. But I see your point regarding higher levels for sure. Why melee rogues maybe don't need this boost to be able to move. So all you've done is you've told me that I thought I had a fix for this. I don't.
So I think this feature is just fine. I think this feature does just makes sure that a rogue doesn't get screwed by a non-aligning perception of the hiding rules.
And I agree that is a good thing. I do.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't add to the power of the rogue. Like, I don't recall many situations where this is relevantly better than Cunning Action Hide.
Yeah. Let me think about that for a second. I can't think. I haven't given it a lot of thought, and I would actually need to, but I don't. My initial gut response is I agree.
There's some creatures at like the high levels that have 30 passive perception, but then again the rogues might just beat that.
Yeah.
No, not quite. They only roll like a 26.
Yeah, ultimately, I guess the advantage is you can't be guaranteed that your hide will work, even against
Yeah.
lower perception, because sometimes you roll like crap. Those ones
Yeah.
happen, and there's a lot of DMs out there. Whether it's part of the rules or not, a natural one is always going to be a fail. Personally, if I'm your DM and you're guaranteed success, you don't need to roll. But
Yeah.
I'm not. Although the rules support that, I know there are a lot of DMs who no. If you roll a one,
Yes.
it's a one. Yeah.
I
And
do want to add to the low-level rogues using hide, they have a +7. Now, if you are in an environment where everyone is relying on dark vision, suddenly the enemy has a -5 to the passive perception as well.
that's true. Yeah.
So, if you roll a 1,
You should be able to
you
hide against
beat
most things.
a passive perception 13.
Again, depending on your DM.
Yeah.
But yes, within the
You,
rules, 100%. Yeah.
so at that point, and you see this in many, many published campaigns that like the first level
And
thing.
not
So
just
like,
dark
hey,
and not just dark vision either. Because I should mention this too, because I'll get told by a lot of people that if you're playing a rogue, you need dark vision. I don't think you necessarily do. If you're not playing against somebody with dark vision and you're in dim light, you can still get this advantage. And that's not hard to do. Most light sources have an area of bright light and an area of dim light. And you can choose to be, and some of them, it's not that much. If somebody's got a light spell, it's actually not hard to have yourself in dim light. And then you can still see your enemies, and as long as they're not hiding, that's not a problem for you. But if you are hiding, it's an advantage for you. I just wanted to mention that. That doesn't specifically relate to this, but you made me think of it.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even at low levels, I often see situations where the rogue is guaranteed success on their hide check.
Yes. Yeah. And I've played rogues
yeah.
where with DMs who know the rules, who basically you don't need to roll. Right? Let's save ourselves that time and move combat a little faster. Their passive perception is not good enough.
Yeah. Overall, I think the cunning action aim is a feature that doesn't. Well, now that you're talking about the melee rogues, it might actually increase their effectiveness at points that aren't intended with the booming blade. But I don't think it's a balance issue as long as you're playing with feats.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my gut feeling is it isn't. But again, I know there are a lot of people who think rogues are really good. Rogues are actually considered, from what my research, anecdotally, considered one of the more powerful classes. I'm not sure they match up to spellcasters when we get into higher levels, but that's my opinion.